many others are involved in this?
More than you think. We are everywhere.
Once, in a galaxy far beyond the charts of any known star map, there existed an empire built not on fear or conquest, but on the resilience of its people. The Empire of Lemuria had survived centuries of cosmic storms, hostile invaders, and even civil wars. At its heart was a young princess named Ilera, whose name would echo across the stars, not for her crown, but for the humanity she embodied. Ilera was not like other royal heirs. Where others saw wealth and silk-lined corridors, she saw duty. Where others sought glory in war, she sought the souls of her people, learning their stories, their fears, their dreams. She would often walk among the marketplaces, unguarded, laughing with merchants, playing with children, and listening to their songs. She was royalty, yes, but first, she was human, more human than anyone could imagine. One evening, as the twin suns of Lemuria dipped below the horizon, painting the skies with molten gold and violet, Ilera heard a soft cry echoing from the palace gardens. There, wrapped in a blanket of stardust silk, was a tiny girl, barely more than a month old, alone and trembling. Beside her lay a small note written in a language long thought lost. "She is the key. Protect her." Ilera's heart clenched. She scooped the infant into her arms, feeling the warmth of life against her chest. In that moment, she knew her life would never be the same. She named the child Lyra, and from that night, she swore an oath. No empire, no power, no enemy would ever take this child from her. The palace halls whispered secrets. Old advisors murmured in corners, worried about the sudden appearance of the baby. Some whispered of curses. Others feared political enemies. But Ilera's resolve was unshakable. She hid Lyra in the secret chambers beneath the palace, known only to her most loyal guards. She often sat beside Lyra in the dim glow of the chambers, singing lullabies her mother had sung to her when she was a child. "Hush now, the stars are listening," she whispered, and Lyra would close her tiny eyes as if the universe itself had responded. But not all threats came from within. Far beyond Lemuria, in the black void of space, a warlord named Xerath had been tracking a powerful artifact rumored to have the ability to turn empires into dust. Unknown to most, Lyra's very existence was tied to this artifact, a spark of life that could shift the balance of power in the galaxy. They did not know she was coming. They did not know the empire itself would call her name. As Lyra grew, Ilera began teaching her not just the ways of royalty, but the ways of humanity. They learned the languages of forgotten planets, the history of fallen stars, and the stories of ordinary people who had built extraordinary worlds. But the galaxy was not patient. One night, as the palace slept, the sky lit up with the fiery trails of invading ships. Xerath had come, and he demanded the child. Ilera stood on the balcony, cradling Lyra as the first missiles struck the outer walls. "You will not take her," she shouted to the void. "She is not just a child. She is the hope of Lemuria." The battle was fierce. Ilera, though young, wielded weapons powered by ancient Lemurian technology. She fought with a ferocity no one had ever seen in the royal chronicles. But she was not invincible. With every explosion, the palace trembled, and Lyra's cries pierced the chaos. It was in that moment, as fire and steel rained down, that Ilera heard it. A voice that came not from any living being, but from the empire itself. The walls of Lemuria hummed, resonating with Lyra's heartbeat. The artifact, long dormant, had awakened. The empire called her name. It recognized her, and in that recognition, the impossible became possible. Ilera had no time to marvel. She wrapped Lyra in a protective cloak that shimmered with starlight and fled to the hidden starship she had kept secret for years. Together, they hurtled through the galaxy, dodging enemy ships, navigating asteroid belts, and slipping past interstellar patrols. On the journey, Ilera spoke to Lyra, who, though still small, seemed to understand more than any infant should. "One day, you will understand, Lyra. This galaxy, it will need you. And when the Empire calls you, you must answer," she whispered. Lyra cooed, reaching her tiny hand toward the stars, as if recognizing her destiny. As days turned to weeks, Ilera realized they could not run forever. They needed allies. On a remote planet called Veolora, they found a group of rebels, humans, aliens, and sentient machines, who had sworn to protect life across the galaxy. Though wary at first, the rebels recognized the aura of Lyra and pledged themselves to her and Ilera. Here, Ilera began training not only for survival, but for rebellion. She taught Lyra to understand the strength in kindness, the power in empathy, and the courage it took to face enemies who saw only weakness. Heroes are not born in the halls of palaces. They are forged in the fires of compassion, in the choices we make when the universe demands more than we think we can give. Years passed. Lyra grew into a clever, brave, and compassionate child, while Ilera transformed from a princess into a warrior, a strategist, and a mother who carried the weight of empires on her shoulders. Yet the greatest battle was not against Zirith or his forces. It was within them. Ilera struggled with fear. Fear of losing Lyra, fear of failing her people, fear that the galaxy's hopes were too heavy a burden. Lyra, though young, sensed it. She would reach for Ilera's hand, her tiny fingers gripping with unexpected strength, and whisper, "We are together, Mama. Always." And in that moment, Ilera realized that the true power of Lemuria was not in weapons, not in walls, not in crowns, but in love. Pure, unyielding love that could bend even the fabric of the cosmos. When they finally returned to Lemuria, the Empire itself seemed to rise in recognition. Cities rebuilt themselves as if remembering old glory. Citizens flocked to Ilera and Lyra, and even the skies seemed to shine with approval. The artifact, responding to Lyra's presence, became a beacon of hope rather than a weapon of destruction. Zirith, confronted not by armies, but by the combined will of humanity, alien allies, and the awakened empire, fell, not through hatred or violence, but through understanding. He saw that the galaxy no longer belonged to tyrants. It belonged to those who cared, who nurtured, and who protected life. The Empire called her name, and she answered, not as a princess of old, but as the beacon of all that humanity could achieve. And in her hands, the galaxy found its future. Years later, Ilera and Lyra walked through the gardens of the palace, now rebuilt and thriving. Lyra, no longer a baby, had grown into a leader in her own right, compassionate, wise, and unafraid. Ilera looked at her daughter and whispered, "The stars remember you, Lyra. They remember the love that built this empire." Lyra smiled, reaching for her mother's hand. Together, they looked to the horizon, where the twin suns rose once more, bathing Lemuria in golden light. And so, the empire that called her name continued to sing across the stars, carried in the hearts of those who dared to love, to protect, and to believe. For in the end, that is what made humanity truly shine.